Okay, so we're doing algebra. This is the warm-up, so if we're going to use this as notes as well. So let's make sure we pass these out, and let's go through this together. The first thing I want y'all to do is realize that today we're going over rate of change. That's the main point of today's lesson. So at the top of your paper, I want you to write y equals mx plus b. Okay, I want you to box in the m. What is the m in this linear equation? It is the slope. It is also known as the rate of change. And so that's the main topic of today's assignment and today's lesson, okay? The b is the y-intercept. Write this down. It is also known as the one-time fee or the starting amount or starting point. But today, the main topic is this part right here. Okay? Now, what's the difference between slope and rate of change? There really isn't. They are the exact same thing. The only thing that's different is when we're talking about slope, we usually use fraction form because it's a rise over a run, where a rate of change we're usually talking about in decimal form because we might be talking to like how much money do we make per hour, but it's the exact same thing. Okay, so remember that to find slope you use rise over run, or you can use your stat button. So let's look at number one. Number one says the graph of a linear function is shown on the grid. Which of the following statements are true? Select three answers. So we're talking about the slope over this whole thing. So let's go find it. Is the slope positive or negative? Well, if it's going down from left to right, it is negative. So this one is correct. This one's wrong. Now remember that slope, the rise over the run. The rise is the change in y over the change in x, because the y-axis moves up and down, that's your rise. The run is your x-axis, that's your left or right. So it says when the change in x is 2, so they're talking about the run, the change in y is -6. Well, let's go look. Here's my rise. Here's my run. My run is 2. My rise is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when the change in x is +2, so they went this way, was the change in y -6 going down? Yes, that is correct. Is the rate of change -3? Well, let's do it. So if this was, whichever way you put it, the rise was 6 over the run was 2, and you put a negative, is that -3? Yes. All right, number 2. The graph shows the amount of water that is collected in a tank over the span of a week during the rainy season. What is the rate of change? So again, you're going to keep hearing that word, those words over and over. Rate of change means slope. So you have two options. You can do rise over run, or you can use your stat button. If you use rise over run, then you have to go use your graph, and if you use stat, you have to make a table to put in your L1 and L2. So I'm going to do it both ways. So let's do rise over run first. You need 2 dots. So this is good and this is good. Remember that if you do rise over run, you have to count by what they are counting by. So if I look at the y-axis from here to here, that's 5. So they're counting by 5. So my rise is 5. My run is from here to here, which they are counting by 1s. So 5 divided by 1 is 5. And they're talking about, what is the rate of change? Inches per day. And I just looked and got that. Here's your inches per your day. Okay. Now, had we used stat, let's say we didn't want to use rise over run, we would need 2 coordinates. So this coordinate right here on the x-axis is 0. On the y-axis, we're at 35. Right here, we're at 140. So you would go to stat. We better get the same answer, so we need to get 5. Edit. Clear out your list. Type in 0 and 1, 35 and 40. This is linear, so I'm going to go to stat calc. We're doing linear, so option 4. And the slope is 5. So you got the same answer. So you pick whichever way works for you. All right, let's go to number 3. So right here, you see the table, you know that stat will read tables. And if you read the whole question, it says, what is the rate of change? There's two ways to do this. Okay, you can use stat, which I already told you how to do. We'll do it both ways. Or you can use the slope formula, which is the change in y's over the change in x's. So here's your x's, here's your y's. What is the change here over the change here? So counting backwards, the change in y is 5, because 5 minus 0 is 5. The change in x, I'm not going to really do that in my head, even though I probably should be able to. 63.75 minus 20 is 43.75. And you would just divide. So 43.75 divided by 5, and that's your answer, 875. Again, if you wanted to use stat, which is really a safe way to go, you go to stat edit, delete what's there, type in 0 and 5. Remember, you only need two coordinates, 20 and 63.75. Stat calc, option 4, because it's linear. And here we go, 875. So it doesn't matter which way you do it, you're going to get the same answer. Okay, at this point, if you would, these are your notes, so you guys are going to keep them. If you would pass out the assignment, which is the Blitz Day 2. Okay, so if you pay attention to what it's asking for, almost every single question is asking, what is the rate of change? 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 Okay, so every single one, you can do stat, you can do rise over run, or you can do the slope formula, the change in y over the change in x. You need to pick which way works best for you that you know that you're confident doing. On 5, notice that it is asking for the rate of change, but this equation is not in slope-intercept form. So you're going to have to rearrange it to y equals mx plus b so that you can identify that rate. Okay? So, I mean, most of these are just asking for rate of change. I think a few of them might ask for like the rate of change or the starting amount, especially when you get to this part right here. So, so if you come to the back, it's the full rate of change and starting amount. So this is the full y equals mx plus b. So stat is still going to work as long as you have coordinates to put in. It's going to find the m and the b. So these are all equations. Remember, we don't care that it says f of x. F of x is just how you name a function instead of saying y equals. Okay, so just be careful what it's asking for on here. Remember what a 0 is. A 0 is an x-intercept, so you're going to have to go graph this and solve for it. Here, this graph is shown, which ordered pairs are solutions, so we're kind of including all this stuff and stuff that we talked about yesterday. So be careful with that. And then there's even some sequencing, which we just went over. So this looks like, yeah, finding the nth term in the sequence. So you should be able to do that. We just learned that. But most of it is slope and y-intercept. Okay, you may get started.